ReliaQuest mental performance coaches Dr. Nicole Detling and Derin McMains interview top performers across multiple industries to unpack the strategies and the mindset they use to get the job done. Welcome to No Show Dogs, powered by ReliaQuest. Hey, welcome back to the No Show Dogs podcast, powered by ReliaQuest. My name's Derin McMains, and I'm alongside my coach, my mental performance teammate, Dr. Nicole Detling. Doc, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. Okay. So while we're recording this, the Olympics are happening.
Yeah.
It's going to be released right after the Paralympics end.
Yeah.
But I got to say, there's been a couple of sports that's been taken out of the Olympics that I'm really kind of bummed about. And I bet you can guess which one I'm referring to the most.
Softball. And
that's right.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I miss softball in the games.
You know what? I love softball. Softball is so fun. It's so fast. There's such energy. It's so fun. It is one of my favorite sports. Like being a baseball guy, I tell I have a now 11-year-old daughter. She just turned 11. I'm telling her, I'm like, can you please play softball? Just so it is just so stinking fun. So anyway, but with that being said, we have an outstanding, incredible guest today, a Hall of Famer, actually. So we want to welcome to the show Florida State head softball coach, Lonni Alameda. Lonni, how are you today?
Hello, I'm doing wonderful. Wow, you just said Hall of Famer. That went like crazy. It's been a while.
Wild?
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, before I read your bio, I'm curious. We've had a few Hall of Famers on here. Like, what do you think when you hear that? When somebody says that and you're like, ooh, weird. Like, I'm just curious. Like, what are those feelings?
Yeah. It's funny when don't go through the Hall of Fame ceremonies and all that. You hear people say Hall of Famer and you're just like, wow, that's super cool. They're in the Hall of Fame, and then I've gone through it and it's just so cool, reflecting on the journey, So I think that part of it, when I think of the Hall of Fame and being a part of it, is I've been a part of some really cool people's lives and they've enriched me, and hopefully this program's enriched them. And on top of the other fact that I've been around a long time, coaching on that. That's the other part of Hall of Fame, right? You've been in it a long time.
Yeah, a long time and doing it at a really high level for a long time, for sure. Yeah, that's great. Well, I want to read your bio here, and then we're going to jump right into it. So entering her 17th season as the head coach of the Florida State softball program in 2025. I mentioned it before, Hall of Famer head coach Lonni Alameda has guided the Seminoles back into one of the nation's best teams. After 7 Women's College World Series appearances from 1987 to 2004, the Seminoles now have returned to the World Series 5 times in the last 9 complete seasons, including winning the program's first NCAA National Championship in 2018 and 2 Women's College World Series finals appearances in both 2021 and 2023. She's a 6-time ACC Coach of the Year, and as we just mentioned before, was inducted into the NFCA, which is National Fast Pitch Coaches Association Hall of Fame in 2023. So incredible journey. And that didn't even mention your coaching career starting at Barry University or at Stanford, at UNLV, and the Canadian national team, right? And so there's I was just trying to give the high level stuff, the most recent stuff. So incredible journey. But let's talk about Florida State specifically to kind of jump right in. When you became the head coach at Florida State in 2009, you took Florida State to the next level. You came in, good program, but then now it's elite, top 5, top 2 every year. What were some of the things that you did? You came into already a good program and you took it to the next level. Just enlighten our listeners out there. What were some things that you established early on?
I was very lucky because I had 2 really competitive pitchers coming into the program. One of them I recruited at UNLV, so I knew her really well, Sarah Hamilton. So when you come into a program, you got to get the meat and bones going, right? I get it. I'm brought in here transactionally, right? I like to live at the crossroads of transaction and transformational. Transformational is what fills my bucket. I love to see kids, come in and get the most they can out of their experiences, but I'm hired to do the transactional piece of it. So when you get transactional, you got to get pitching and softball, right? And I hear you, Doc, get softball back in the Olympics. We need that to happen consistently. But so I got here and I had 2 pretty good pitchers right off the get-go, and Therese and Sarah, and a catcher in Kaylee Rafter, who's coaching with us right now, that could manage that piece for me that first year. So being able to build off of pitching skill set wise, we could elevate the team athletically. I think the biggest thing is just really inputting a mindset, our value system, our where we're going, a mission vision process. Like, what are we doing every day? Where is the end goal? How are we going to get there? And what do we want to be and how do we live it? So I was really lucky at Stanford to start a program with John Rittman. We had one scholarship, finally got to close to 12, finally got to the World Series. Being a part of that process of building just gave me a lot of experiences to be able to share when, you're setting into a new program, which Coach Graff was amazing here, did great things. And now I could kind of, build off of that. So I really feel like the values piece, the culture part was a big part to really catapult it to the next level.
That's great. I hadn't heard that before. I live at the crossroads of transactional and transformational. So cool. Such a cool way to say it, because you bring up such a great point, like talent ID right away, right? It's like, we got to have some talent. Like you can't win without talent. But then it's that next piece. It's the values, it's the culture, and that's what brings it all together, right? And so can you give us just like one example of a value that you have in your program and how you've helped bring it to life?
I would say this, and trying to figure out what the value system and culture system was, it took me a while to how to identify that. But years later, we sat down with a sports psychologist, Brian Kane, and he's like, all right, like, let's figure out what was really important to your program. And so as a staff, we sat down, we wrote on index cards, 5 things. Like, if you held up the jersey, what are 5 words that this jersey represents? And then we did that same exercise with the team. And family was one of them. And we came up unanimously family, and they came up unanimously with family. So like, it was super cool to know that we were living that and being that. And I think that's one question I get asked a lot as a coach is like, man, how do you navigate your way? How do you find your way? And I'm like, man, just be who you are. Like, literally be who you are. So that just told me right away, like, people were comfortable here. We could genuinely be ourselves individually because we created this family atmosphere. So the door's wide open, kids coming in and talking, hanging out off the softball field at times, whether it's going to pick up trash or have dinner at the house or whatever it is. Like, kids came over and were around it, and you could see that there was comfort in family. So I think that that's one thing that just really hit me, is like, we had been living it, we just didn't define it, and we didn't give it the ability to have a common language. I think that's where our culture lives, is my family, just like you two. If I say, man, like, dinners at my house were awesome, you go directly to dinners at your house. You don't go to dinners at my house. So like, I have to like be vulnerable and explain, like, dinners at my house were sitting in a TV tray, and my mom made dinner, and we didn't really sit around where maybe you guys sit around the table and you have no phones and you say a prayer. Like, everyone's dinners with their family's houses are different. So we had to define family. So I think that's where it was really apparent to me that we were comfortable here doing one of the core values that we felt was really important to us, but really got into talking about them and connecting with them and making our family values here at Florida State Softball a collective effort, on what that looks like. So I don't know if that's an example per se, but that's something that just really hit me when we were starting to write those down on the index cards.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, around the idea of defining those, right? Really getting clarity on, like, what does it mean here at Florida State specifically? And I love how you included everyone in it, right? It's like, it's not just a top down, hey, this is what we are, this is who we are. It's like, no, hey, we're all going to write this down together. And what a cool exercise that I know some of our listeners can use, right, with some of the businesses they're starting as well. So I think it's a great thing for you to share. I got one more doc on this kind of idea, and then I'm going to turn it over to you because I'm getting fired up about this. Like, in reading all the articles that I got to read about your program, one of the things that really stood out was your program's connection to your fan base. And I think about how your culture that started inside your locker room, right, that you built, has now extended into the community and into the parking garage. Like, I was reading about people in parking garages and like just filling out the stadium, which I'm sure, in seeing you smile right now, brings you so much joy, which is really neat. But just how have you been able to do, like, how has that culture extended beyond just the walls or just the stadium walls, just the parking lot, into the community? And now you have a whole fan base that feels a part of your program.
Cool. You recognize that a little bit, I guess, and kind of reading through it. But I feel like I have a big responsibility as the CEO of this program, right? The head coach, but essentially, like, I'm running a business here. And, when you say that how we define family, it's written, our core values are written all over our building here. And I think whatever's on your letterhead, whatever is your slogan, whatever, like if you don't define it, like it's just a slogan, it's just a letterhead. Like if you don't define it and you don't talk to people about it, you can't live it. And eventually it separates from your business. And so I think that's really important is like, if someone walks in here and they see this building and they see these words, they should see us on the field or an environment. Like we are living family. We're a very competitive team. We are committed, like the things that we put on our letterhead or whatever is there. It should also be that with my consumers, right? My fan base should see what we do because they're investing in us. So I always said, when we set out in this venture of fundraising, fan raising, like how we're going to do this is from the inside out. Like you're going to be super proud of us. And if we don't start on the inside and pour into the people on the inside, eventually people looking in are going to see you can get away with it a little bit, but over time you're not going to get away with I'm not living what I'm saying, and I think that was super important to inside out. So when we meet with the players, like we're going to have a booster group, we're going to have mingles, we're going to have meet and greets, we're going to explain what we're about because we want them to be super proud of us. But going back to the transformational side, these girls are growing because of the connections of the people, so if our players can go out there and then we have a meet and greet and they can shake hands and they can look people in the eye and then now they know, and I get a lot of this now that I've been in the game for a while, but a lot of our players go on into businesses and they're like, Coach, you wouldn't believe we have core values in our business. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Are you living them? Like, it's like super cool. Like a lot of, we think of sport as just sport, but it is a business and we're trying to create a top end business, right? And trying to do those things. And so I think it's really neat for them to see because now they take those experiences into the real world and then, they have something to go to. And I also think it's really neat as a fan, everybody wants to be a part of something, everybody wants to be a part of something. And you can't buy being a part of a championship team. You can't buy, like you can be but like we have to go do it. I don't care how much money we have to go do it. Right. So you see that in pro sports all the time. Like there's a lot of people that have a lot of money in pro sports and they're not winning championships, right? Like there's something on the inside that connects people to get them through. And so we try to really live that. And, when we're out there, like there are people supporting and watching you and proud of you. Like, let's talk about what that looks like and let's connect that. So I think that's where that comes from, and we really enjoy it. We really enjoy the mingle part because now our players have a fan base that's like family. So when they come up after games, people are hugging them. One of our biggest fans, Miss Betty, she gives them hugs no matter what. Like you can win, lose, go for 4, hit a home run. I don't care. She's going to hug you and love you because she loves being around here. What a cool environment to be in, So, yeah.
That is so cool. Just when you said that, it just reminded me of my grandmother who's passed now, but after every game, she would always just say, Grandma loves you. Grandma loves you. And the only indication of whether I played well or not was whether there was dirt on my uniform. That was it, right? And so this is what I would do as like a little leaguer. Like I remember, like if I didn't slide or get on or anything, I would like roll there and like rub dirt all over my jersey. And Grandma. But it just felt so good, right? To have someone that just appreciated you for your effort, not so much like because, you were 0 for 4 or whatever. So to have the opportunity to what you've created, have that family feel for student athletes that are away from home, that extends beyond, I can't imagine just how important that is to those student athletes. So I just think that's really cool. Just definitely wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So a couple of things I'm hearing you say that I think is really powerful, and I want to make sure our listeners hear that, is core values are great to have, but you have to define them. You have to operationalize them. You have to live them in order for them to really mean anything for you. And I'm sure that wasn't an overnight process, even though maybe coming up with the words were, but actually operationalize, living them, things like that. Is it safe to say that you also recruit based on your core values? Do you search for players who don't just have talent, but also fit the criteria necessary that's like that person is one of us? We want them to play for us, not just because they're good, but because they already embody this idea of family. They're going to fit in really well.
Yeah, I think it's taken me a while and our coaching staff a while to figure out what that looks like. What's a Florida State player look like? It's definitely taken some time to figure that out. And I've grown as a coach and as a recruiter through that too. So I do agree with you that you're going to attract what likes what you're giving off, right? Like, so we get a lot of kids that come to camps and a lot of kids that email us. And, going back to DMAX thing, like I have to have skills. And it's funny, like we go to, every time I speak to parents at camps or even I speak to players, I'm like, what do you guys think we're looking for? And, everyone says, oh, like the hard worker, the good teammate, the one that goes 110%. And I'm like, yeah, I guess skills. Can you play? Like, there's a point where we've got to find skills. And then from there, you start to get separators. And the separators at that point are the people that really show those things. Values are easy to define. We have to live them, right? So you get people into your program, you start to like, oh, like that is truly family. That is truly, but there's things that attract them to this. And then when they get in the system, that's when we really start to blossom, I would say. And I think it's my job and our job as a coaching staff to create an environment to be vulnerable enough to show what the core values are like. So when we create a culture calendar, like we're hitting on them every year. So if you've been a senior in this program, you're getting 4 or 5 years of family. Like we're going to go through some sort of exercise in the fall and spend a good 10 days on each core value. And we're going to talk about it and we're going to define it and you're going to share it and it's going to grow because every team is different. So we're graduating 5 or 6, we're bringing 5 or 6 in, right? I'm a year older. I always say this, right? Like I'm a year older and wiser as a coach, right? They're still the same age coming in. They're still the same rookies coming in doing the same thing. So I can't get numb to it. We've got to collaborate again. So yes, if family is what attracted you here, how we play the game or the things that we do attracted you here, I still have to flourish that inside of you. And I still have to make sure that fits into our program. So it's not like I see a questionnaire and they check family and I'm in. It's more of like, man, their skill sets can fit here. And then I start to really enjoy how they pursue us just as much as we pursue them. Now let's let this flourish and grow. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
no, it did. It absolutely did. I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. But I'm curious then, what happens if you get someone in and they end up not fitting the way that you thought they would, and you've done what you could to adjust things, to teach them, to help incorporate them into the team, but they're just not the right fit from that perspective. What do you do then?
Yeah, I think, one, we're fairly lucky because we don't have a lot of attrition. Not a lot of people leave here. But I think sometimes that is part of your journey also is everyone that's left here, I'm still in touch with. I think there's 2 things. One is I want you to play. You only get 4 years to play at this collegiate level, right? 4 years to play. So uber important for me to make sure that I hold that true. If you want to play and you're not playing here and there's a reason why, and I'm very honest with them. So if we go back to the business side, the business of softball, here's where you need to be as a ball player. Here's where you need to be to get into the game. Here's where you need, and if you're not hitting those marks, maybe I'm not a good enough coach for you, or maybe there's more opportunity on another side. So maybe we go down a level or we go somewhere else where maybe there's only 3 pitchers and you can be the 4th, like very honest business talks on that side of it. And then some people are like, man, I'm all in. I want to be part of this team. I will do the pinch running thing. I will do the pinch hitting thing, right? Because their honesty in the build. Some are like, no, I want out. And I'll support that. There's not many that leave here that you're not connected to, at this point. But I still think it's like, there is and I think that's the one thing that's so important in sport is just to be honest. If you're honest with them on the get-go of the business side of what they're doing, the anxiety of trying to figure out how to get in the field is lessened. And now all of a sudden we're not as anxious and we can be real and we can get after stuff. And if we're not hitting it, we're not hitting it. We're moving on somewhere else. If we're growing and we're getting better as an athlete, I see that. I start getting excited. I put some more work in and now I'm taking off on the field, which is super cool.
That's good. Yeah. It's honesty, clarity. Like that's the kindest thing you could do for someone, right? As a coach, as a leader, is like, this is where you're at. This is where we're at. This is what it's going to take to get us all to the next level. Right. Because it's in that honest, direct communication where people can make the greatest gains, And so I think sometimes, leaders, especially ones that are maybe too focused on the relationship, get word like that could hold them back. Because they're like, well, I don't want to sever this relationship, so I'm not going to have the hard conversation where it's like, you can pay tax now or pay it later. It's like, but if you do it now, it's going to be what's best for the team, right? And help. And that's what's best for the individual as well. No Show Dogs is brought to you by ReliaQuest, a global leader in cybersecurity. ReliaQuest helps enterprise cybersecurity teams increase visibility, reduce complexity, and manage risk through its security operations platform, Gray Matter. Powered by decades of experience and streamlined by AI and automation, ReliaQuest exists to make security possible. Learn more at ReliaQuest.com. I want to talk a little bit about expectations, because it mentioned at the beginning how you all have been to five Women's College World Series in the last 9 seasons. So ton of success, which brings with it a lot of expectations, right? Of like, now, hey, if you're not in the finals or in the College World Series, right? If you're not there, it's a failure, right? And so that's got to be tough, right? For new student athletes coming in. And you mentioned, right, it's like you've been doing this a long time, but the student athlete stays the same age, right? And so being able to like be intentional and get back and connecting with that, remembering that they're all rookies, right? I'm curious, like, how do you lead your team and your staff as well into embracing those expectations? And also, I would love for you to touch on, like, how do you celebrate the successes along the way, right? How do you celebrate the 3-game sweep at Duke, or, whatever it might be? Like, how do you celebrate those when it's like, well, yeah, we expected to do that. No big deal. It's like, well, hold on. Like, I don't just how do you balance that? We'd love to learn from you on that.
Yeah, I think I'm still learning that, honestly. Like, I don't think that every year has taught me something different. Last season, I knew that we'd be really young in the circle, and then we started getting some injuries. And man, I was like, man, this is it's trying, right? It's really trying. But then all of a sudden, we have 2 freshmen that just like turned the corner and put the team on their back and got after it. And it was like, don't stop believing. Like, the magic is just around the corner, right? Like, I think as times when you can really feel the expectation and you're just not meeting it skill set wise, it wasn't because we weren't trying. It's just like skill set wise, it wasn't clicking. And then all of a sudden it clicked. And I think that's the one thing about sport in general, or softball. We play 60 games in a season. It's a lot of games. And baseball and softball, we're crazy on that, right? Like, we have so many games, and it can get the monotony and just the grind of it can get to be a lot. You don't get a lot of downtime. You're playing Wednesday, and then you're on the road, and then you're playing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then you're home, and then you're back again on. You get maybe one practice in the week to get after some things, and so it can hit you left and right and hit you. But if you put the time in, and that to me, that's where you put the time in the off season, and you really build your relationships and you build your skill sets, then you just got to go and you got to keep getting after it. And I think that we do a good job of always mid-season, we have a good reflection as a team and a good reflection as a coaching staff. Where are we? Where are we right now? Meet them where they're at. Meet us where we're at. How do we get better tomorrow? Like, not about the end. So we'll get to usually the end of February, and we're like, man, like, that was some blows, man. We're feeling it, right? What can we do right now to make us better tomorrow? And we've always been really good at that. And I think the one thing that I've learned is, like, we are a different team in May than we are in February. And we're okay with that. Like, we're not gonna, I don't care what people think of us in February. Like, there is a journey, and there's a journey for a reason. And so as long as we can keep out tomorrow, right? Like, what did we learn today, and how can we be better tomorrow? So we do a thing called the Weeby Hose. What did I do well? What can I do better? And how can I do it? And I think some people always look at, like, man, I wasn't good today. I wasn't good today. What did I do well? Because you did something well. What can I do better? And then the how piece, right? The how piece is a coach, and the how piece is a player. So tomorrow I walk in to get better tomorrow. And if you start building those building blocks and you have these experiences, so we're getting challenged. What did I do well? What can I do better? And how? And you keep getting that how a little bit better. Now you start to grow as a team. And I think that's been really, really significant for us.
Is it that exercise that helps your team maintain belief from February through May, right? Because I love that the magic's right around the corner, right? And I think one of the best coaches I've been around have that ability to keep that feeling inside the team, regardless of yesterday's result or last series result, whatever it is. They have that way to communicate in a way where, or an exercise that maybe you mentioned, where it's like, hey, magic's right around the corner. Like we just can't lose belief. And so do you think it's that exercise, or maybe there's some other things you do that you've learned along the way? Like, how do you intentionally cultivate belief and help your team understand that, hey, the magic's right around the corner?
Yeah. I think storytelling's good too. And Travis, the assistant coach, he's one that's big with that too. Like, just don't stop believing. But we have a backboard in our classroom. It's a process board, essentially saying how you play the game. So again, getting into numbers, right? Numbers like just take the feelings out of it. It is just numbers, and it takes the feelings out of it. So there becomes the transactional, right? Like this is what we're doing. Every year it's different. Sometimes we're outstanding hitting, and that's okay. Like defense, can we get a little bit better, right? Can we queue up a little? Sometimes we're struggling hitting and we're really good in the defense. Can we get a little bit better on the offense, right? Like you start to see the numbers stack out. This is who we are in this backboard right now. How can we get a little bit better? So I think that's a big thing, is like we keep them talking it. It is my program. Our program is their team. It is their team. There's only one 2025 team. Team 42, what are they going to do with it? And then how do you get better? So we get ownership. We start leading them to it. We talk stories. We share things. Then they start opening up. They're vulnerable. Like, oh, we could be better in sack bunts. Like, man, if we ran the bases with our head ups, we can get an extra 60 feet. Now they're starting to get ownership of how they're going to create their team, which now they start to see that in games happen. And we're right there with them on the growing piece. I don't care the wins and losses. I care about the process. And the more processes come into play, now we're celebrating things. And now all of a sudden we're high-fiving an extra base. We're high-fiving a 10-pitch strikeout. We're high-fiving some things that are processed that are clicking to that board to make us this much better to continue the growth. So I think I could give a 1 for the Kipper speech for sure, but that's only going to last for that moment. We want 60 games. We want end of the season run. We want those things. They have to be into it. They have to be the ones that are all about it. So I guess that comes back to leadership and ownership.
Yeah.
But we really try to cultivate that, a lot of conversations, a lot of stories. And the stories sometimes are the juniors and seniors. How many seniors, hey, you guys stand up, all these freshmen think you got it going on, right? Can you share what you were like your freshman year when you cried every day? Like, can you start to bring some vulnerability to be like, man, we have a kid, Amaya Ross, like she's worked her tail off to be a starter for us. Amaya, stand up. What did it take to be a starter? Because you ran bases maybe once a weekend, right? And all of a sudden freshmen are like, whoa, like they were in my shoes, and you'll get some really true comments. So I think when you share stories in the break room, or you share, super cool and empowering to unite one.
Yeah, what a cool way. Sorry, I just want to highlight this, and then Doc, I'm going to throw it to you, but just what a cool way to transfer ownership. I love how you discern between, hey, my program, your team, right? I think that just gives such good clarity and how you start to transfer ownership, and then to have them tell the stories. Hey, this is what it was like. Hey, I was right in your shoes 4 years ago, or whatever it is. Like, I think it's that storytelling, not from the coaches, but from the student athletes, the players on the team, on the field. I can just imagine how powerful that exercise has got to be, and how that definitely transfers ownership to the team. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, Lonni, I am loving everything you're saying. I think you're dropping so many golden nuggets of wisdom, whether you're the listeners in the athletic field or business, entrepreneurship. I think there's so much good stuff here. And I hope people are really listening and thinking, wow, how can I apply that wherever I am? Because this is just genius. But I want to ask you a different question, in that you have figured so many things out. You have spent 30 plus years in coaching. You made a lot of mistakes along the way, I'm sure, figuring it out. And you've gotten to this incredible level now where you are consistently elite. Your teams are consistently performing at higher levels, which is amazing. Like, that's the dream that we all have, right? Consistently performing at world class at high levels. So I'm curious then, what are you working on now? What's the next mountain for you? What is it that you're still trying to figure out that maybe you haven't quite gotten there yet, and you're looking for ways to improve for you as a coach, as the leader of this team?
Yeah. I mean, I think the game itself, the businesses, everything changes, right? So you got to keep up. Like I can't do my old ways 10 years ago now. I can in a certain way, but analytics is a big thing in us right now, right? So I had to figure out how to get a little bit more of the numbers piece and the scouting and the matchups and the video. Like, that's just really gone into our game. And if I was like, not going to learn, don't want to do it, I have my way, I'm going to get left in the in the dust and have to move forward. So I think the game of the businesses, things change, and you just got to keep morphing with that. Still doing it my way for sure. But I think I think what's really important is to hear from your people. So I do anonymous surveys. I definitely at the end of the season and mid-season have a lot of meetings and a lot of feedback. So tell me how I can be better. I like to hear from the kids. I give a lot, like back in the day, you could actually have conversations with people and they tell you now no one wants to have that. So I do a lot of like anonymous surveys, which is great. Like give it to me real, like, and I think that the more people share with you. So one of them right now is like, I'm super busy. You're too busy to chat with. My door is always open, but it's really not because I'm just always busy. The game has changed. There's so many things I'm over right now. Like I'm doing more fundraising, I'm doing more recruiting, I'm doing more things because the game has changed. Now I've got to figure out how to be more accessible. So I've got to organize and be better with my time. So like I think when you get feedback from the people you work with and from obviously the game, like we didn't make it to the World Series, I got to be better coach. How do we get to the World Series? I have better strategy. That really helps me grow. So now I have to take that information back and I got to be more organized this year than I ever was, but I also got to make sure that I make more time to be who I've always been, just chill and hang out and let's talk, and make more of those moments. And again, meet them where they're at. That used to be after practice. Kids go home now, they don't stay around. Before they hung out here all the time. Now I've got to create that during the day when they do hang around. So I've got to morph a little bit, but like still work on that connection piece. So I do think just the feedback is a big part. And then just we as coaches or leaders have to have reflection moments all the time. Like the game. So when you say like, we're constantly good, like the game speaks to me. If we're not good on the field, why are we not good? Because that reflects on me. What was that? Attitude reflects leadership. Was that Remember the Titans, right? Like I could get mad all I want. That is reflecting me and how I set up practices and do things. So don't get mad, like be better, right? Like be better on leading, coaching, skill sets, all those things. So I'm really big on that feedback part of it.
That is such a great answer. I feel like a lot of the high performers that I've worked with, and I mean, at this point, I'm putting you into that category, obviously a high performer, they have a pretty consistent message, which is as hard as it is to get to the top, it's harder to stay there. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that will knock you off the top faster than anything else is not adapting, assuming, okay, I've figured it out. I got it. I've made it. And so let's just keep doing what I've been doing. Yet not recognizing that everyone else is fighting to get there too, and you're going to get knocked off. And so I love your answer of the willingness to adapt and consistently looking for ways that you can be better through feedback from the people around you, from your team, from your other coaches, like asking for that and being willing to listen and take that. And then even your own self-reflections and, what could I have done better? So rather than blaming, well, the team just didn't show up today and didn't perform. Okay, well, maybe that is partly true, but what's true about me? What could I do? How could I be a better coach? So I think that's a really powerful message for a lot of us who, hey, celebrate when you get there, for sure. Absolutely take a moment, celebrate, and then get back to work and figure out, how can I still improve? How can I continue to be better? I think that's a really good message.
Yeah, I definitely want to highlight one thing that you said that I thought was really insightful was that, hey, the type of players maybe today or whatever it might be, maybe don't want to give the hard, honest feedback face to face. And so you're like, that's fine. We'll do an anonymous survey. I don't care because I need real talk if I'm going to get better. And so I just thought it was a really cool thing. I didn't want to rush past either of like, hey, meet people where they're at so you can get what you need so you can get better, right? And so the team can get better, so the program can get better and all those things. And so, and Doc, great point around adaptability. And I want to lean into that just a little bit around being able to adapt to stressful situations, right? We talked a little bit earlier about expectations. Spoke with a couple fans of the Florida State program coming onto this before we had the opportunity to meet you. And the one thing that they said was like, just how loose and relaxed your staff and your players seem to be, right? Now, what they are, I don't know, right? That's why I want to ask the question, but they seem to be. They're always having fun. And to think about the huge expectations, the stressful, high pressure games that you all play in, right? Especially going into the postseason. How have you fostered that approach? Because you guys have obviously found a way to balance the two, right? To be able to like, hey, or maybe it's just all fun. I don't know. Like, I'm just curious to hear your approach to this on how to manage these big big games, big moments, high pressure.
It's funny you said this in the beginning, like, it's so fun. I want my 11-year-old to play. It's so fun. Like, honestly, like defining fun. So at 11, it is fun because they're just with their friends and it's fun. And we played softball. And I hear a lot of people say when stressful moments come, like, go back to that 11-year-old, go back to when you just played T-ball and it was fun. Like, yes, that's easy to say, but the reality is things have changed. Like it's not T-ball. We're not playing T-ball. So you're not going to go back to that. Like there is expectation on you now. You've trained for something. You're putting on a line. There is fear of failure. There's all those things. So let's define fun. Like let's define where we're going to. And I know it sounds like we are kumbaya a lot in what we do here, but the reality is like I love winning. That is fun to me. And when you start to say that at higher levels, like that gets a little bit more challenging. So I think we talk a lot about our cheers in the dugout. And it's funny from the baseball side. And I have a couple of friends in pro sports from NFL to Major League Baseball. And, I see that a lot of guys, especially girls and guys sports, right? Girls we can laugh. We can laugh at some things. And if a dude does that, like, oh man, what's he laughing at? Like it's like,
Totally.
can't be, yeah. And guys have changed a little bit. The whole let them play thing in Major League Baseball kind of came in to like having a little bit of fun and swag out there. But our sport we do cheers, we do things, and the reason why is because when we're kids, there's not a lot of people at women's games. So we create our own energy. You have to have energy to play. Everybody wants energy. And that's the coach is like, have energy, stand up, have energy. Well, singing and cheers, right? That's where it comes from. So then like as you get into college and people are doing cheers, my whole thing is like, why are we doing them? This goes back to core values, right? Like, what are you saying in the cheers? Like, what do you mean? So we connect everything we do in the dugout from what we say, when we high five, we really connect that to process on the field. So then hopefully we're creating fun with process that eventually gets to the outcome of enjoying what we did, whether we win or lose. You can lose a really good ball game and it can be a lot of fun, but the outside world is like, oh, they lost. But us are like, man, that was fun. I want to be in those games more and more and more because it was intense. We were all about it. Like it was really fun, where you can win some games that were horrible and not have fun, right? Like there's just, so how we do things, I think is fun. So that's how we try to stay loose, is we try to really like, I'm big pressure situations when I walk out to the pitcher mound sometimes. Like, but this is so fun. Bases are loaded. We got 2-2 count. Like, this is so much fun. Like, what do we want to do here? Like change the mindset, right? Like it's like, man, I do train. I start in September and I train to get to June, and I want to be when it is the game's on the line. This is what I train for, instead of being fearful for it. So yeah. I think that's where we try to really encompass that, like, what is fun? Why are we having fun? How are we connecting fun and enjoying that? So, yeah.
You said something that I hadn't heard before around, well, I haven't heard before in the softball realm, but it speaks across all high performers, is that intentionality, and how you bring that intentionality into energy, and that intentional, like, what are we cheering for? Like, what are we saying? Like, and how does it connect back to our process, our core values? And just, I think that is so important around, hey, we're going to be intentional in everything we do, even in how we cheer and how we give energy to one another. It's going to be consistent within our program's core values and what we're trying to accomplish. Like, I think that is incredible. Never even thought about that, right? The intentionality behind that. I just, as a fan, you're just like, oh, they're just yelling stuff,
yeah.
But to kind of get, how the sausage is made, it's a little bit, it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like, I love that. I love that you brought that in.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've built such a solid foundation, and everything is so easy to build on top if you have a solid foundation. And I love that you consistently go back to that in everything that your program does.
Yeah.
Not just the big things, but the little things too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it takes time and it's tough. It's just, I think, like, when you have a culture-based program, I guess you would say, but like, I mean, what fills my bucket is the transformational side through sport. Like, sport can put us in so many scenarios that we can get in so many adverse situations and we grow as a human. And I think that's so cool. So that's what I go for, right? Like, I love those moments of like, man, like I could see some freshmen in big moments. I'm like, this is so good for her. whether Jay's going to strike out or hit a home run or get a base, it's so good for her, right? Like this is a moment of growth. And I love that part of it. But I think that like it takes a lot, like a culture calendar. So I have my cuts and relays, we have our short game, we have our base running, what we're doing hitting, we have our skill sets, and then we have our culture calendar, and it's tied in. And you have to take time. If you're building a program and you want connection and you want end goals, you have to take 20 minutes a week and schedule it and talk about something, right? Week 3, we are going into SMART. And what does SMART mean? And I have to have a good idea. Sometimes we may act out things. Sometimes we may go for ice cream. Sometimes we're going to do something as a unit to talk about this core value. And it's got to be in the system. Because if it's not, you're just going to go straight to softball or baseball or your business. Like you're just going to go to that because that's what we all work. But the reality is we gotta pour into people. So you have to have this calendar of building that in there. So yes, intentional, but I have to be intentional with the intention side of it, or else we'll just blow by it. And then next thing I know, I'm like, man, we never covered family. So why am I expecting to be connected out here? Because we never really went through it. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think so many leaders make that mistake. It's like, hey, I've told them, why aren't they doing it?
Yeah.
And because there's not that consistent follow-up and reminders and how-tos and all of those things that you incorporate into your program.
Yeah.
You know, this has been such an incredible conversation. We're getting down to the end here, down to our last question. And I am so looking forward to hearing your answer to this. I mean, as you know, this question's called No Show Dogs because no show dog mentality is about one thing, and that's doing the work, right? Putting the time in, doing the work. It's being willing to do the things that others aren't willing to do. So reflecting on your career up to this point, what were some of the things that you were willing to do that maybe others weren't, that has helped you succeed?
I think, as an early coach, like I've been in everyone's shoes that's part of the program. So, I've drugged the field. I've been the equipment person. I had to go shopping for the concession stands. I've been the SID. I've done the videos. Like we didn't really have the support then. And I wanted to venture into that stuff, right? I wanted a highlight reel for our players at the end of the week. So I had to do the highlight reel. So I had to figure out how to do the highlight reel. But now when I'm in a program now and I meet with the video people that do the highlight reel, I'm like, man, thank you. Because I know how long it takes. And so I think that genuine, understanding, so when you dive into it, you can't be above a job, like go do the job. Like, and I think as a young coach, I always say, don't hunt the money first, hunt the opportunity, because we're always going to be hunting money down the line. But if you fulfill yourself with opportunities, now down the line, people are going to want to be around you because you so are grateful for their job because you've done it. Or you just jump in and you can see people. I guess that's a big part is I can see our equipment person. I see our grounds people. I know how hard that is. I know how hard it is to edge a field or to get second base to be level because everyone's getting leads there, right? Like simple things that have conversations that you're tied into them. So if you want a program that people are all in for, like we say all in, 99%'s a bitch, right? 100% all in. Like we want to be all in, no questions asked. Like then you have to be that person from the top. So I feel like I can shake the trees about some positions on the field, off the field, because I've done them before. And I know how hard they are, just as much as I'm going to high five them and love them up for things off the field and on the field. And I think that's really important. So to me, at a young age, dive in, be about everything possible, do all the little things. Because then, from there, when you start to work your way up, you don't forget about that because that is so hugely important.
Fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. Hunt the opportunity, right? Not the money. You can't be above the job. You got to be all in, do all the little things. And then when you do get to the top, you can't forget it, right? You got to, and make sure that everyone feels seen and they know that they matter, right? I think, fantastic. Lonni, thank you so much. This has been just so fun, so insightful, and not shocking of why you've had such an incredible run and you'll continue to have success and you're a Hall of Famer. And just, again, want to thank you for just taking the time to sharing your wisdom and your hard-earned wisdom on the No Show Dogs podcast.
Thank you guys. That was awesome.
Yeah, Lonni, hey, if people want to connect with you or Florida State softball, where can they connect? Where can they find you?
I'm an emailer, so that's old school, but and my email is on the website, Alameda. Just hit me up. And we're we're here. So I do get a lot of young coaches and some businesses, which is crazy. I speak to a lot of businesses too. And
Cool.
I think that's when it really hit that like we are running a business is when I started speaking to banks or, to people in town or driving over and they're like, oh man, that's so true. And, it just like really hit home. But yeah, but hit me up in an email. Love to. This was so much fun. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go out and have and shoot, we'll make it a great today, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.